Black waitress kicks out billionaire for harassment, then his father arrives with helicopter offer. Where are you watching from? Type your city in the comments. You might just get a shout out in the next video. If you're a cat lover, hit like. If you're a dog lover, drop a comment. Let's see who wins. And if you love pets in general, hit like and subscribe for some good luck today. The restaurant smelled of roasted garlic and lemon butter salmon, the kind of high-end place where the cheapest plate could buy groceries for a family of 5. Inside, waiters and waitresses glided between candlelit tables, their crisp uniforms hiding the exhaustion behind their polite smiles. At the corner, near the panoramic window that overlooked the city skyline, sat a young man in an immaculate tailored suit. His wrist gleamed with a platinum watch worth more than a car, his hair slicked back with arrogant precision. He leaned back in his chair, swirling a glass of red wine, not because he was tasting it, but because he wanted people to see him tasting it. His name was Brandon Sterling, the son of one of the richest men in America. Billionaire by bloodline, entitlement by nature. And tonight, Brandon Sterling was bored. Sienna Carter, the young black waitress who had been working doubles for weeks, approached his table with her notepad. Her ponytail swung neatly behind her, her black apron smudged faintly with the day's grind. She had a smile that could brighten a room, but tonight, her patience was running thin. Rent was due. Her little sister's school fees were piling. And the restaurant's manager always reminded her, big spenders are your top priority. Good evening, sir, she said, her voice steady. Can I get you started with something else, or perhaps you'd like to see the dessert menu? Brandon's smirk spread like oil on water. He leaned forward, eyes scanning her face with the kind of gaze that made Sienna's stomach knot. You know what I want, he drawled. Why don't you sit down and join me? Forget the dessert menu. You look sweet enough. Sienna froze. The nearby diners didn't hear, but the words slid across the table like slime. She forced a professional smile. Sir, I'm here to serve food and drinks. If you'd like something, I'd be happy to bring it. But Brandon wasn't listening. His gaze dropped lower, bold, shameless. I could buy this entire place if I wanted. You really think you're too good to sit with me? Do you know who I am? Sienna's chest tightened. She'd dealt with rude customers before, but this was different. This was harassment. Her mind replayed her manager's warning, don't ever upset the big spenders. They're our lifeline. But another voice rose inside her, the one her late mother had instilled. Dignity first, Sienna. No job is worth your soul. Brandon leaned back, smirking. Tell you what, give me your number. I'll make sure you never have to work another shift in your life. Unless, he grinned wider, you like serving people like me. That was it. The room around her blurred into silence. Sienna took a slow breath, then leaned in just enough for only him to hear. Sir, you can leave. Now. The smirk faltered. Excuse me. You heard me. Her voice carried a quiet strength now, rising from somewhere deeper than her apron or her paycheck. I don't care who you are. You don't talk to me that way. Get up and leave, before I call security. For the first time, Brandon looked genuinely stunned. Nobody spoke to him like that. Not at home. Not at boardrooms. Not at clubs. The silence at the table stretched. Then he laughed, loud and dismissive. You're insane. Do you have any idea? But before he could finish, Sienna picked up his half-full wine glass and set it firmly back on the tray. Her steady eyes locked on his. This is your last warning. Gasps rippled across the dining hall. The pianist at the corner faltered mid-note. Brandon's jaw tightened as whispers began to stir. He glanced around, realizing people were watching. Red-faced, he shoved his chair back, muttering curses under his breath, and stormed out of the restaurant. The room buzzed. A few diners clapped softly, others shook their heads in disbelief. Sienna stood rooted, her hands trembling, but her chin lifted high. Her manager rushed over, eyes wide with panic. Sienna, do you know what you've just done? That was Brandon Sterling. His father. I know who he is, Sienna interrupted. And I don't care. She walked toward the staff door, every step a battle between fear and pride. But she didn't know the night wasn't over. Not even close. An hour later, as the restaurant began to empty, a thunderous sound roared above. Glasses rattled, silverware clinked, and heads tilted upward. Through the wide windows, beams of light cut across the city night. A helicopter. It descended onto the open plaza just outside the restaurant, its blades whipping the air like a storm. Diners rushed to the glass, some pulling out phones to record. Staff peeked from the kitchen, wide-eyed. Sienna froze, heart thudding. The helicopter door opened, and out stepped a man in his late 60s, tall, silver-haired, wearing a charcoal suit that seemed woven from authority itself. His stride was slow but commanding, as though the world bent slightly under his presence. Everyone recognized him instantly. Richard Sterling. Billionaire. Titan of industry. Brandon's father. He walked through the restaurant doors as though they were his own. The manager nearly tripped over himself rushing forward. Mr. Sterling. Welcome, sir. We weren't expecting. Richard raised a hand. The room fell silent. His piercing gray eyes scanned until they landed on Sienna. You, he said simply. Every gaze swung toward her. Sienna swallowed, her hands tightening on her tray. Yes, sir. He walked toward her, each step echoing. Brandon trailed behind him, face pale, lips pressed tight. Clearly, he had not expected his father's arrival either. Richard stopped in front of Sienna. For a long, tense moment, he simply studied her, like a jeweler examining a rare stone. Then, his voice, calm but sharp. My son tells me you threw him out. The room held its breath. Sienna's throat was dry, but she lifted her chin. Yes, sir. I did. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly. Brandon smirked behind him, ready for her downfall. "And why?" Richard asked, his voice deep as a drum. "Did you do that?" Her pulse raced, but her voice came steady. "Because no woman, no person, deserves to be spoken to or treated the way he did to me. Not here. Not anywhere." The silence was deafening. Then came a sound nobody expected. A chuckle. Richard Sterling chuckled. Then the chuckle grew into a laugh, low and genuine. He turned slightly, glancing back at his son. "You hear that, Brandon? That's called dignity. Something you should have learned years ago." Brandon's jaw dropped. "Dad, what?" Richard raised a hand, silencing him. Then he turned back to Sienna. "What's your name?" "Sienna Carter." Richard nodded, repeating it under his breath. Then he leaned closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "I like you. You remind me of myself when I was young, before the money." Then, louder, for all to hear. "How would you like a job?" Murmurs exploded across the restaurant. Sienna blinked, unsure she'd heard correctly. "A job?" "Yes," Richard said. "Not here. Not as a waitress. I run companies across the globe. I need people with spine, people who can stand their ground even when it costs them everything. You just proved you're one of them." Sienna's lips parted, words catching in her throat. This was unreal. Brandon sputtered. "Dad, you can't be serious. She embarrassed me." "And you embarrassed yourself," Richard snapped, his voice thunderous now. The restaurant flinched at the weight of it. "If you can't respect a woman who works hard to make an honest living, then you don't deserve respect yourself." His words sliced the air, final and sharp. Brandon shrank back, his confidence crumbling like ash. Richard turned once more to Sienna. His tone softened. "I have a helicopter outside. Come with me. We'll talk about where you fit in my world." The offer hung in the air like lightning. Sienna's heart pounded. A part of her wanted to leap, to seize this impossible chance. Another part of her hesitated, grounded by loyalty to her sister, her community, the life she knew. She looked around. At her stunned co-workers. At her trembling manager. At the guests who had witnessed it all. Then she took a breath. "With respect, sir. I'm not sure I want to fit in your world." Gasps echoed. Richard tilted his head, intrigued. Sienna's voice strengthened. "I've worked too hard to know the value of every dollar I earn. I won't sell that for luxury. What I will take is your promise, that your son will learn respect. Not just for me. For everyone." The room fell utterly silent. Richard Sterling stared at her for a long, unblinking moment. Then, slowly, a smile touched his lips. A smile not of amusement, but of admiration. "You are extraordinary," he said softly. "If you ever change your mind, my offer stands. Until then," he cast a withering look at his son. "I suggest Brandon works for you until he learns what dignity looks like." The restaurant erupted in whispers, some stifling laughter. Brandon's face burned scarlet. Sienna stood tall, the weight of the night settling around her. She hadn't just defended herself. She had reminded everyone in that room of a truth too often forgotten. The helicopter lifted back into the night sky, its roar fading into the distance. Sienna returned to her shift, exhausted but unbroken. The tips she received that night were higher than she had ever seen. But more than money, she carried something priceless. Proof that even against the wealthy, the powerful, the untouchable, dignity was worth more than diamonds. Because sometimes, the richest person in the room isn't the one with the money. It's the one with the courage to stand. Moral of the story. True wealth isn't in money or power. It's in dignity, respect, and the courage to protect them at any cost.